My 29-year-old wife, as beautiful as ever, told me something that would undermine the core of our marriage. It wasn't in any unclear or obscure manner. She said it all out plainly, in a way that even I couldn't misread, to set the scene. I had arranged an amazing dinner at one of our favorite luxury restaurants. Everything was perfectly planned, including spotless white tablecloths, an impressive wine selection, and even a diamond necklace she'd had her eye on for a while. I'd spent over $1,000 on that device, not anticipating how quickly I'd start thinking about methods to get it back. However, throughout the evening, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Our typical light-hearted banter was overpowered by an underlying anxiety. She appeared distracted. Her gaze moved over the room, as if she were looking for something or someone. Normally, we couldn't take our gazes away from one another, but tonight her attention shifted around, barely settling on me. It wasn't until we finished our main course, and I poured us another round of wine, that she spoke up, her voice heavy with something unspoken. "Rob?" She started, a tremor in her voice. "I've been holding a secret for a long time, and I believe it's time to talk about it." I laid my glass down, having a sinking sensation in my gut. What could she possibly be going to say? Was she finally ready to discuss planning a family? We agreed to postpone until our careers were more steady, but now that we were in a better position, I was pleased about the prospect. But when she avoided my gaze, it was evident that this was not about bad. No, it was something different, something bigger. She sighed heavily and eventually met my gaze. "Rob," she said more solemnly than I had ever heard her say, "I've been doing a lot of soul-searching recently, and I need to do something for myself." "For us?" Her voice trembled as she said, "I need to explore aspects of myself outside of this relationship." The words struck me like a blow in the gut, taking the wind out of me. "What exactly are you trying to say?" I inquired, my voice trembling as I leaned in, attempting to maintain her eyes, but she turned away. Her hands twisted nervously in her lap. "I'd like to see other folks, Rob. I need to explore that aspect of myself. I hope you understand, so that we can prevent the worst heartache down the line." It felt as if the ground underneath me changed. Heat surged into my face, and my heart pounded in my chest. "Other folks," I repeated, my tone rising. "Are you telling me that you want to date other men?" I inquired, incredulity pouring from every word. I couldn't recognize my own voice, louder, desperately trying to grasp onto anything. She bit her lip, hesitated, and eventually nodded. "Yes, it is part of it," she said. The room appeared to whirl, and everything became blurry for a brief moment. The classy restaurant, the quiet talk of fellow diners. Everything faded into the background as her words rang in my ears. "You want to date other men, yet you expect me to do what? Would you be cool with it?" I couldn't believe what I heard. "Rob." "Lower your voice," she muttered, looking around, evidently concerned. "We draw attention." It struck me. Then, she chose this busy restaurant for a reason. She knew I would not make a scene in public. She had surprised me, and now I felt stuck. My thoughts raced to keep up with the betrayal happening in front of me. "Why, Rebecca?" I made my voice quieter but no less strained. "Why other men? What exactly does this mean? Are you planning to sleep with them? Are you leaving me?" Her eyes softened, but they remained unflinching. "No, Robert. I am not leaving you. I love you. I really do. You are my soul match. I just need some time to figure out who I am, to delve into portions of myself that I had previously overlooked. It is not about leaving you." Her comments were intended to reassure me, but they fell hollow and lingered between us like a cloud of worry. How could she ask me that? How could she possibly expect me to be all right with her running off with other men, only to come back to me as if nothing happened? My stomach flipped, and for the first time in my life I felt unable to breathe. I couldn't sit there any longer. I stood elegantly, placing my napkin on the table and gulping down my wine without saying anything further. I turned on my heel and walked toward the door. "Rob, where are you going?" she called for me. Her voice was terrified. "I don't know," I said without looking back, "but you should probably get a cab home." I left her at that beautiful restaurant with only her shattered explanation and a diamond necklace she no longer deserved. I drove for several hours. I have no specific destination in mind. My head is hurting with the confusion of my thoughts. The streetlights blurred together, and the buzz of the motor was all that kept me anchored. I must have fallen asleep in the car since the next morning I awoke in an unknown parking lot, my head still pounding. The previous night's reality came crashing down on me again. The first thing I did was discharge myself behind a bush. I know, classy. Then I went in search of coffee, discovering a modest diner. I ordered breakfast and a large cup of coffee. I was trying to put together a strategy, but there was no way I was going to agree to it. No way, hell. But what happens now? I turned on my phone, which I had turned off the night before, only to discover several missed calls and texts from Rebecca. She was worried. She expressed fear about where I had gone. I did not respond. I was not prepared to confront her. Not yet. After several cups of coffee and a plate of eggs and bacon, I realized I couldn't postpone it indefinitely. I needed to go home. When I pulled into the driveway, Rebecca was there waiting for me. She rushed over as soon as she saw me. Her cheeks turned pale with worry. "Where have you been all night?" she demanded, racing towards me. "I felt something dreadful had happened to you." I took a step back as she attempted to kiss me, extending her hand. "Rebecca, I need to clean up. Then we'll sit down and have a serious discussion about what you said last night." I walked past her and went directly to the shower, the hot water hammering down as I attempted to make sense of it all. Was she trying to test me? Was she actually serious about this? Can our marriage withstand this betrayal? Rebecca was waiting for me at the kitchen island when I returned, dressed in fresh clothes and with another cup of coffee. I took a notepad and pen and sat across from her, attempting to keep my emotions under control. "So, Rebecca," I began with a steady yet strained voice, "could you please describe why you believe this exploration is a good idea?" She did not hesitate this time. "Rob, I feel like something is missing from me. I need validation as a woman. I want to figure out what I need, and I believe I can only do so by investigating relationships other than ours." I took a deep breath and forced myself to remain calm. "So you claim you don't know what you need, but you believe sleeping with other men would help you figure it out?" Her voice wavered. "I'm not saying I'll sleep with everyone, Rob, but if the perfect connection comes along, I might consider it." My chest tightened. This was not the woman I married, and I doubted she would ever be again. I stared at her, my heart pounding in my chest, trying to figure out what she was really saying. "So you're saying you might sleep with another man if the connection feels right, and you expect me to sit here in our house while you do so?" My voice cracked as the weight of everything pressed down on me. "Rob, it is not like that," Rebecca murmured, annoyance coming into her tone. "I am not leaving you. I do not want to leave. I just need some room to figure myself out. Dating other men gives you the space you need to figure out who you are." I fired back, feeling my composure melting. "How is this intended to work? Rebecca, how could you possibly believe I would be all right with this?" She looked down at her hands and nervously twisted her wedding band around her finger. "I've been feeling this way for a few years now, Rob. Our lives have been devoured by work and routine. I don't feel as appreciated as I used to. I am not suggesting it is your fault, but circumstances have changed." "Valued," I repeated incredulously. "Everything I do is for us, for our future together. Do you believe it has been easy, working day in and day out to create this life for ourselves? Do you believe this house and life really happened on their own?" Rebecca flinched at my tone, but I didn't care. My rage was rising to the surface, and I wasn't about to hold it in any longer. "Rebecca, We are ready to pay off this house. We have built a life together. And now you're telling me I didn't make you feel valued? I gave a sour laugh, shaking my head in bewilderment. She sat silently for a minute, her hand still fluttering before saying, I just feel like something is missing, a connection we once had. It has been gone for a while. I clenched my fists and struggled to keep my voice steady. So let's get this straight. You intend to fill that void by going out and finding it with another man, or as many men as it takes. And you expect me to stand by and watch as you look for this missing link? She averted her look again, evidently unsure how to answer. Rob, I'm not sure what is going to happen. I'm not saying I'll sleep with everyone, but I should at least see if I can figure out what I'm missing. The words lingered in the air, harsh and stinging. I couldn't believe what I heard. I had always assumed we'd have troubles like every other couple. Financial stress, possibly conflicts concerning children. But this, I never expected to be sitting across from my wife, discussing her desire to sleep with other guys. What happens if you locate it? Rebecca, I inquired, my voice cool. What if you go out there, meet another guy, and feel that connection again? Then what? You come home and tell me everything is okay. Our marriage is stronger because you received what you needed from someone else. She eventually looked at me, her eyes hazy from unshed tears. I do not know, Rob. I'm not sure how this is meant to go, but I swear I still love you. I do not want to lose you, but you are losing me, I said gently, realizing as I spoke. Every word you've said tonight has harmed our relationship. This is the thing you want. This is not something I can endorse. It goes against everything I believed we stood for. Rebecca stretched across the table and attempted to hold my hand, but I resisted. Robert, please. I just need you to understand that I have to do this for me. For us. I laughed bitterly. This is not for us, Rebecca. This is for you. You requested this. You're the one who wants out of this marriage. I'm not going out, she responded, her voice quiet but forceful. I'm looking for space to sleep with other men. I spat and stood up abruptly. The room seemed too cramped and suffocating. I needed to go before saying something I'd regret. Rebecca remained seated. Her gaze followed me as I paced the room. Rob, I know this is difficult, but we can get through it. I am not asking for a divorce. I'm only asking for time. I paused and turned to face her, my chest tight with rage and anguish. So what happens after this? What are you asking for? Should we just pretend that none of this happened? Do I simply ignore that my wife was out looking for a connection with other men? She didn't respond. She couldn't respond. I shook my head, feeling deeply betrayed. Wash over me. Rebecca. I'm not sure how we're expected to move forward from this. You changed everything with a single phrase. I turned and left the room, leaving her sitting there in solitude. I wasn't sure where I was heading, but I knew I couldn't remain, not with her words crushing me from within. Finally, she spoke, her voice quieter than usual. I can't say for certain what I'll do if it seems right with the right person. I might entertain the idea, she said, avoiding my look. So, are you thinking about infidelity? I inquired, scarcely able to conceal my amazement. It is not infidelity, Rob. It's not cheating if it's done with your knowledge, she explained calmly, as if that made everything okay. My blood pressure increased, so I took a big breath before sipping my coffee. I wish it were something stronger. I had to remain composed. I had to keep a clear head throughout this chat. Let me get things straight, Rebecca. I started attempting to wrap my head around her crazy idea. You intended to meet other men, go out with them, and possibly even become physical. And you still intend to live here with me? Is this what you are saying, honey? It isn't that straightforward, she explained, her voice trembling. It appears to be quite straightforward, I shot back. What about us? Are we expected to put our marriage on hold while you go out and explore? Are we still physically involved as you do this? Absolutely. She spoke with conviction. Rob, you and I are family. I love you and want to stay with you. This is simply something I need to do for myself. And how often do you plan to do this, Rebecca? I pressed on, my frustration growing with each weekend. Twice per week, every night. How far do you intend to carry this investigation? I haven't decided yet, she confessed, her voice tinted with hesitation. Rob, why are you so fixated on the specifics? Because I want to know what my life will be like while you are out there meeting, dating, and sleeping with other people, I explained. My words were oozing with bitterness. I do not have a girlfriend, Rebecca. At least not yet. She grimaced. But I wasn't finished. Rebecca, I need some clarification here. I continued, my rage scarcely restrained. Are you really committed to this decision? Have you considered about how this will affect our marriage? She nodded, but did not react directly, avoiding my gaze. Then she spoke the one thing that would set the course for our future. If you love me, you will allow me to do this. If you love me, I replied firmly, you would not even ask for this. So here is my ultimatum, Rebecca. Even with advance notice, infidelity is a deal breaker in our marriage. These are my terms. If you choose to see other men, you need to leave. I'm not sharing a house with you when you're out dating and sleeping with other people. Get out, she inquired, her voice trembling. Where am I meant to go? I do not know. Perhaps you might stay with your buddy Matilda, I said, bitterness permeating my words. She's divorced, right? Living alone. I'm sure she'd like to help you. If it doesn't work, consider renting a short-term flat. However, you will be solely liable for everything. Your rent, utilities, and auto payments. I am not covering anything while you are doing this. Rebecca worked as a third-grade teacher and earned a good living while I was a forensic auditor for a large corporation, making a nice livelihood on yearly bonuses. Money was not the issue, but based on what she was saying, it appeared that I was not meeting all of our other demands. That stung. She glanced at me as if she sensed a softening. Maybe she believed she had the upper hand and I'd give in, but I wasn't finished. So, if you're thinking about having an open marriage, I suppose I should wait here patiently while you go out with other men. Are you going to come back to me eventually, honey? Absolutely, she responded, her voice full of reassurance. I love you. You are my husband, and I want to have a family with you. I couldn't help but give a hollow laugh. And what am I expected to do while you're out there getting personal with other men? Stay true to yourself. Simply wait until you're done with your boyfriends. And then what? Pretend everything is normal? Have you given any thought to how this would affect me? I only want you, Rob. You are my hubby, and none of that will change my emotions for you. Will not change, even as I am investigating. When I get home, I want you to be here, to be my husband and father to our future children. Her words seemed almost bizarre. She truly believed she could have it both ways, that I would stand aside while she sought these other men, and that we might yet have a future together. Well, I replied, rising up and crossing my arms, you should start packing your belongings and moving them into the guest room. I don't think I can sleep with you right now. Your plan is too much for me. Even though you don't say anything, it feels like you're leaving. Rebecca remained silent, presumably recognizing that I wasn't going to take this without a struggle. Maybe she believed I was a pushover, that I'd let her go through with this crazy while pretending everything was normal. Well, she was mistaken. I'd seen this coming for a long. Matilda, her divorced friend, had been a negative influence from the beginning. I suspected she was behind the whole scheme. Matilda, a fourth-grade teacher at the same school, had her own scandal a few years ago when she cheated on her husband with various lovers. She was now 35 years old, single, and living a carefree life, no likely whispering her bizarre notions into Rebecca's ear. But here is the truth. If Rebecca crossed that threshold, there would be no family. Not with me, anyway. There are merely divorce papers. I stood up and Rebecca glanced at me, puzzled. Is this everything, Rob? Are you asking me to leave? Yeah, for now. Let's be clear, Rebecca. I do not want you to go through with any of this. We made pledges to one other to be faithful, and now you're going to break that vow? What do you think I should do? Simply wait around while you see other males. If you want an open marriage, I suppose I will have the same choice. She couldn't respond without saying anything else. I grabbed my car keys and headed out the door. Rob, where are you going? She called for me. I do not know yet, I replied without turning around. But put your belongings in the spare room and start looking for a place to stay. You are not bringing any of your affairs into this home. I closed the door harder than normal, the sound reverberating in the silence as I entered my car. I pondered driving to Matilda. S-flat, approaching her immediately, but I knew it wouldn't work. This disaster was Rebecca's fault, not Matilda's, and she would have to face with the consequences. Monday arrived, and I was already out of the home before Rebecca even awoke. I had no intention of letting this happen without a struggle. She felt she could go about dating other men while I stood by idly. No way. Step 1. Please contact my attorney. Fortunately, I had a wonderful buddy who handled a variety of legal things, including real estate and wills, and, while he was not a divorce attorney, he could refer me to one who was. He came through, recommending a top-tier divorce attorney from his firm. By that afternoon, I had scheduled a meeting with her. I didn't want to have this conversation, but it was important. I told the attorney that I wanted to keep things as amicable as possible. I wasn't looking for blood. A 50-50 share of our assets was fine with me. After all, we had created this life together till now. I wasn't going to drag things out over an unfaithful wife, but I wasn't prepared to file anything yet. I needed proof of her infidelity before making my next move. The week dragged by. I spent as little time at home as possible and went to the gym every night to relieve stress. Rebecca was practically addicted to Matilda by Thursday. She informed me she'd be staying with Matilda for a few weeks until she found her own apartment. I understood exactly what that meant. It allowed her the freedom to see her new boyfriends without me in the way. When Saturday arrived, Rebecca was packing her belongings into the car and preparing to depart. But just before driving away, she paused and looked at me with big eyes. Rob, I do not want to go. Are you sure we can't figure something out so I can stay? She inquired, her voice quiet. I adore you and sincerely wish to strengthen our marriage. I sighed, feeling the weight of the situation. Rebecca, if you truly loved me and wanted to fix this, you would not be doing this. I want you to stay. But I can't let you be with other men while calling yourself my wife if you won't try counseling. I'm not sure what more to say, so go. She loaded the last of her suitcases. I drove to the hardware store, purchased new locks, and spent the remainder of the weekend changing them. I also altered the garage door code so she couldn't get back in. The following week was torturous. I went to the gym every day, jogging till I couldn't think, trying to overcome the horrible feeling that I had failed as a spouse. How I came to this. Was I truly so inadequate that my wife had to turn to other men? In my uncertainty, I began researching infidelity online. We are desperate for answers. To my amazement, I learned that approximately 40% of married people cheat. What struck me even more was that around 90% of them remained married. In many situations, adultery was simply condoned, especially if children were involved, and couples continued on as if nothing had happened. Many of these wives claim to still love their husbands, but feel something is missing at home. Many women who cheat frequently stated that the duties of family life made closeness with their husbands tedious. They managed children's activities, housework, and the daily grind, which might weaken their relationship with their husbands. They want something intriguing, someone who will pay them attention without instantly talking about kids or errands. It made me wonder whether the secret to a long-lasting marriage was to act as if your wife was having an affair but not actually cheating. Focusing solely on the physical connection, I briefly pondered trying to pick up my wife at the club she and Matilda frequented, but the concept seemed preposterous. People cheat for a variety of reasons, including a lack of physical satisfaction, a lack of passion, or simply a sense of disconnection from their spouse. Some people even cheat in order to exact revenge on their lover for betraying them. A few people claim that affairs helped rescue their marriage, but I'm unconvinced. Nonetheless, this is what research on infidelity shows. Marriage is complicated, and maintaining a relationship takes effort. Open marriages, in which both partners consent to see other people, rarely work out because emotional attachments form, sentiments are wounded, and divorce is the most common outcome. Polyamorous partnerships are not easy, especially when children are involved. There is also the ongoing possibility of introducing a sexually transmitted disease into the home. For me, monogamy is the only way for a marriage to work. If neither partner agrees on that, they should reevaluate their connection or find someone else. And I neglected my wife, pushing her away while I focused on creating a life for us. Did I miss something? I couldn't be certain. But I didn't know. I wasn't happy when she left to chase other men. She said I wasn't giving her what she needed. But I didn't see how her actions would help our marriage. The following week moved slowly, much like the one before it. I did not contact her, and Rebecca only wrote me one message, requesting me to transfer her mail to her new address. There was no indication that she was interested in restoring our relationship. It was all business, no personal touches. It was evident that she was carrying out her plan to find a boyfriend, or perhaps several. I considered following her from her apartment to see where she and Matilda were heading and who she would meet. I drove by the location several times but refrained from stopping. I knew I couldn't do this to myself. I had to let her decide if she wanted to come back to me. It had to be on her own, or she wouldn't be my wife anymore. Each day passed, the likelihood of her return dwindled, and the longer it went on, the less inclined I was to accept her back. A month passed with almost no communication between us. When Rebecca's key failed to work, she unexpectedly turned up at the residence. She knocked and rang the doorbell. I replied, keeping my expression neutral. "What brought you here, Rebecca?" I asked. "Honey, my key does not work." "What's happening? This is because I changed the locks," I replied, barring the door as she attempted to enter. "What do you want?" "I came to get a few items I had left behind when I moved in with Matilda," she said, not bothering with small talk. It was not about seeing me. It was only about getting her goods. I stood aside to let her in. After all, it was still partially her home, legally speaking. We walked to the garage, where I had organized her possessions in various boxes. "Why did you pack up my belongings?" she asked. "How long do you intend to stay with Matilda?" I asked, ignoring her inquiry. "Matilda has been really supportive," she remarked, brushing aside the subject. "I will stay with her for a bit longer, maybe a few months, but I'll be back. I will be a better wife then, and we can begin a family." I internally rolled my eyes at her remark, wondering how she could possibly feel that being with other guys would improve her marriage or prepare her for motherhood. "Have you found a boyfriend yet?" I asked bluntly. Rebecca flushed. She did not need to respond. I already knew. She eventually revealed that Matilda and I had a few dates with guys from the club, but that was it. "And how is your physical relationship with your new boyfriends going?" I asked, knowing it would make her uncomfortable. She became redder and began rummaging through the boxes. I left her there and went back to the kitchen where I got my coffee and sat down with the newspaper. A few minutes later, Rebecca entered the kitchen carrying a large bag and glancing about as if she expected to see it in disarray. But it wasn't. In reality, it was pristine. I had a cleaning service come 3 times per week. There were no dirty dishes, beer bottles, or heaps of laundry. Everything was in perfect order. "Meat. Anything else?" I inquired, noticing her curiosity. "So how are you doing since I moved in?" she asked. "I am all right," I said bluntly. "Work keeps me busy. I have been traveling a lot." She looks little concerned and presses on. Have you been out, or are you remaining at home alone? That was the question I was expecting. She wanted to know if I was moving on, so it was time to offer her something to think about. I've been keeping busy, I explained. I've joined a bike group. We meet twice a week for rides. It's fun, and I've met some new individuals. We normally finish with a burger and a beer. I could detect more curiosity in her eyes than she let on. She had not expected this. Perhaps she believed I'd just sit at home waiting for her to return, but she was beginning to realize that things might not go as planned. Later, I discovered that Rebecca was seeing two men from the club she frequented with Matilda. She had been sleeping with both of them, but neither wanted to spend more than the occasional night with her. They were both married and just wanted to have some fun. Rebecca was little more than a brief distraction for them, a standard pump and dump. After 2 months, I had accepted the truth that my marriage was finished. Rebecca had been silent for weeks, which showed her lack of interest in returning or repairing anything, even if she wished to return. There would be conditions, and I wasn't sure I'd even allow her. What cleared things up for me was finding that she had taken a vacation to the Dominican Republic with one of her lovers during her school break. They had spent a week in the sun, presumably working on their tans and who knows what else. If she thought this would strengthen our marriage, she was sadly mistaken. It didn't help that Matilda had shaped Rebecca's perception of me, portraying me as the neglected spouse who drove her to cheat. Rebecca was now living in a 2-bedroom apartment with her dissatisfied divorced buddy, and her image among colleagues and family members was rapidly deteriorating. When Rebecca's mother discovered that her daughter had gone on a tropical vacation with another man, she contacted me to inquire about the situation. I told her the truth. Rebecca had decided to pursue connections with other guys. She was stunned. I encouraged her to talk to Rebecca directly, and Rebecca's response was inevitable. Why did you leave Rebecca? What's going on between you and Rob? Is he treating you poorly? Her mother inquired. No, mother. He is not mistreating me, but he does not make me feel the way I should. I do not feel wanted or beautiful. I need it, but I'm not getting it from him. So I'm looking elsewhere for now. But don't worry, I'll get back to Rob in a few months, maybe a year, and everything will be okay. Rebecca's mother did not mince words. If you continue doing this, Robert will not be waiting for you when you decide to return. Cheating is a surefire way to end your marriage. But don't you see this? But Rebecca was confident. Rob loves me, Mom. He understands. I'll get home and we'll start a family. It will be all right. Her mother tried to warn her, but Rebecca refused to listen. Seeing this, I realized it was time to move on. Whatever was good for the goose was good for the gander. After all, Rebecca had departed approximately 3 months ago, and I knew I couldn't stay in this rut much longer, so I asked a woman I knew from the riding group out to supper. It was not something serious. I just wanted some company and a change from my usual routine. I'd been alive since Rebecca walked out. My everyday routine became predictable: work, gym, riding, and sleep. Day by day. I continued in the same manner, hoping for everything to calm down. That was my life. Part of me wished Rebecca would come to her senses and return home, putting an end to this bizarre predicament. But deep down, I knew that was unlikely. If she does come back, it would not be like the wife I once knew. She was clearly enjoying her newfound freedom, looking for the thrill and recognition she felt had been missing in her marriage. This was consistent with everything I had read about why married women cheat. So I made the decision to set up a date, but I didn't want it to appear desperate or weird. I believed it was best to get to know the people in my riding group better before making a move. I did not want a pity date. I wanted something authentic. Most of my cycling pals were already aware of my separation, and I thought that some of them had heard about Rebecca's active dating life in a city of her size. Word gets around. When I asked Ruth, one of the women in the group, if she wanted to have a drink or tea with me, I was shocked that she agreed without hesitation. We planned a casual Saturday night outing, followed by a kayak trip on a neighboring lake. I'd kayaked a few times before, so I was familiar with the concept. Ruth had never tried it before, but she seemed interested, so we went ahead with the idea. It became our first date. Kayaking went good. We traveled around 10 kilometers in 3 hours and then had dinner at a beautiful local restaurant. I drank a craft brew alongside steak and fries. She requested white wine and spaghetti. The atmosphere was relaxed, no pressure at all. We finished the evening with ice cream from a kiosk near the waterfront, and I drove her home. I was preparing to give her a nice kiss on the cheek, but she startled me by leaning in and kissing my lips. It was surprising but not unpleasant. To avoid coming across as overly eager, I waited until our next regular Tuesday cycle meetup to propose another date. Ruth expressed concern that I had not enjoyed our time together since I had not spoken out sooner. I informed her that I had a fantastic time and thoroughly liked her company. We set up another date for Saturday, a round of golf. I've read about the requirements for keeping interest by texting and calling. I messaged her on Friday, expressing my excitement for the game and offering to bring her up. She desired to meet me at the golf club, so we agreed on an early afternoon time. We had a nice time on the course, despite the fact that neither of us was particularly good at golf. That evening, we had a cookout at my house and shared a bottle of wine. As the night went on, I was about to drive her home when Ruth grabbed my car keys, set them on the counter, and demanded to see the bedroom. The next morning, I awoke to Ruth beside me, her arm resting on my chest. She had long, dark hair, emerald eyes, and flawless complexion, but for a little scar on her chin, which gave her face character. She was tall, around 5 feet, 11 inches, and thin, weighing roughly 140 pounds. She worked as a nurse in the pediatric section, which demonstrated her empathy from the minute we met. Her genuine attitude and calm charm had captivated me. We grabbed brunch on my balcony and ultimately discussed my predicament and the potential of divorce. I knew it was a touchy subject, but I could see why she needed clarity before becoming emotionally committed. No woman wants to waste time with a man who could reunite with his wife. I mentioned Rebecca's reasons for leaving, and Ruth's reply indicated she didn't think Rebecca would return. That talk pushed me toward the next phase in my plan. On Monday, I contacted my lawyer about hiring an investigator. I needed to know how many men Rebecca was seeing before proceeding with the divorce. It turned out that she was dating several guys, the majority of whom were married, and spent time with them at Matilda's apartment after their club evenings. 2 weeks later, Rebecca received the divorce petition. That evening, she arrived to the house, visibly distraught and holding a large brown parcel. I met her at the door. "Rebecca, what brought you here tonight?" I asked. "A person delivered these documents today, sweetheart." "Why did you file for divorce?" "I intended to return home soon, perhaps even this week. We can start working on the baby we discussed." I invited her inside and motioned for her to seat at the kitchen table. "Rebecca, it's too late for that now. When you departed, I made it plain that I did not want you to go, but you made your decision." She attempted to defend her behavior. "Honey, I told you I wanted to find myself so that I could cut her off with confidence." I inquired with a tone of contempt. "So are you feeling more confident now? Have you found what you were searching for? Have you had enough of fresh relationships and physical encounters?" She began to complain, but I refused to let up because it appears to be true. "I haven't heard much from you since you departed. You did not even call me on my birthday, probably too preoccupied with one of your flings in the Dominican Republic. Even your mother contacted you, wondering why you didn't call her on Mother's Day." Rebecca's face dropped as I proceeded. "So how about it? Rebecca, did you spend all this time pursuing pleasure?" "Honey, I love you," she pleaded. "I understand I may have gone too far. I'm eager to return home." I did not budge. "No, you are not." "What do you mean?" she inquired, her voice rising. "I am still your wife, and this is still my house. I'm going to Matilda's to retrieve my things, and then I'll return. You cannot, I explained. Did you actually read all of the papers in the envelope? Near the finish, a judge has issued a ruling. You are not permitted inside 500 feet of this house until the divorce is finalized. Technically, you are currently breaching that order. I'm not going to push it, but you should leave. We will handle the remainder of this legally. Rebecca finally seemed to realize how terrible the situation was. Our oaths to love, respect, and remain faithful had been breached, and there was no way to rectify that. I informed her that if she really wanted the house, she could buy it for $150,000, which was almost completely paid off. It is not. We would sell it and divide the proceeds. In any case, she was not returning home. I led her to the door, closing it behind her and locking it. A month later, we secretly finalized the divorce without having to appear in court. Rebecca received her half of the assets. We sold the home, and I went on. Meanwhile, Rebecca went about her daily routine. I learned from a friend that her charter school had asked her to keep her personal life more private. Parents were aware of her interactions with multiple men, and some were uncomfortable with her educating their children. The moms, in particular, had been vociferous about their suspicions that some of the fathers were associated with her. Rebecca eventually learned she had an STD, not life-threatening, yet severe enough to necessitate a year of abstinence. That may not have been a big deal, given that she was also pregnant. One of her lovers had gotten her pregnant, and she had not used birth control properly. The father was not discovered, but the child bore a striking likeness to one of the married teachers at her school. The divorce set me free from Rebecca. It has been roughly a year since all of this started. I've purchased a new home, received a promotion at work, and most importantly, Ruth and I are now living together. We're thrilled to offer two pieces of news. We are getting married this summer and expecting her first child around Christmas. Here's the next story. Join the Army, travel the world, meet a lot of intriguing folks, then take them out with this joke. My best friend Simon convinced me to join the Army. He'd been here 2 years and stated it was a wonderful life. I even joined the same unit he was in and then volunteered for the same special operations unit. He joined. The training was difficult, but we supported each other get through it. Our organization was situated in a large regional center, and life was rather stable. In fact, we fell in love and married within a month of one another, myself to a very attractive girl named Pam. By the time I completed 10 years of service, I had been happily married for 8 years and had 2 daughters. I adored Kate, 7, and Melissa, 5. Unlike other Army units, mine did not move about. We did have to go out on work for 2 days to 2 weeks, but not very frequently. I arrived home at the usual hour, roughly 300 by 365 days every year. So life was as normal as it could be. I had a woman I adored and a family I would willingly die for. Then, of course, Osama bin Jerk did his thing and threw some complicated logic out there. Simon and I were invited to a holiday in Iraq that year. It was difficult to leave the family, but Pam and I agreed to do so. We did our jobs throughout the build-up and invasion and were quietly excited about returning home. That was crushed when our mob received a scolding from the regimental political officer. We were to stay and battle to keep the peace. Simon, however, the larrikin couldn't help but give the politico a hard time, sir. Fighting for peace. Isn't that similar to screwing for virginity? It was therapeutic to see a room full of big troops laughing their heads off, while the instructor became visibly agitated. Well, history indicates that the peace was more violent than the invasion. At the very least, the enemy donned uniforms during the assault. We lost more guys during that time than ever before. Most outfits were less busy than ours, deploying for up to 4 weeks behind enemy lines, followed by a 2-week return to base. So, I say enemy lines. However, no one could pinpoint them on a map. Nobody could tell us when we were going home. Every second night on base, I utilized Skype to communicate with Pam, Kate, and Mel. That way, they won't have forgotten my appearance by the time I return. 3 weeks into our most recent mission, the storm hit. We were intended to attack a base of roughly 100 nasty people, but instead were greeted by about 1,000. There were only 12 of us, so we made a quick getaway. It took 2 days before the Blackhawks dared to come and collect us. Only 4 of us could still walk, and 3 had died. Worst of all, Simon, my life support system had blown out the tendons in the back of his knee. Nothing fatal occurred, but his service career was over. He was transported back to a hospital in our hometown with the other wounded, while the rest of us remained in the country to be psychologically prepared to rejoin the human race. We all knew we didn't have enough guys to keep on. Cold military planners have known since the Romans that losing more than 10% of a force's complement lowers morale. That's probably why whenever a Roman legion retired from a battle, their own officers would take out every 10th member, a process known as decimation. But which bastards work? Roman legions did not flee from too many battles. 7 days after returning from the mission from hell and 9 months after deployment, I was sitting in the mess tent using my laptop to email one of my guys' new widows. I had been communicating with all 3 of them since the Army confirmed they had been told. Officially, their husbands had died. The Army used a large bureaucracy to accomplish this, but we were a close-knit unit, and I knew they would appreciate the personal touch. I knew them all. Unlike me, they all resided on the base. This third exchange was far more challenging for me than the first 2. I had been truthful when I stated their husbands died soon, but this time I would have to lie. As the platoon's ranking officer, I ensured that all communication with these widowed ladies went through me. If they were going to hear lies, they were going to have continuous lies from me. Suddenly, a small Skype box appeared on the screen of my laptop. Kate Young is online. I dialed in, desperate for human distraction from the emotionally exhausting work at hand. Within seconds, the beautiful face of my firstborn appeared on my screen. I noticed she was seated on the couch in our lounge with her laptop, which she had received for Christmas last year. "Daddy," she squealed. This brought her sister over. And soon I was speaking with my 2 reasons for being, and they were talking at me as rapidly as they could, simultaneously. Of course, we talked for the next half hour about school, their trip to the zoo, and whatever else came to mind. I could feel myself relaxing. The desire to strike out and smash something, anything, was gradually fading. I glanced at my watch and realized it was coming close to their bedtime, so I tried to wrap up our conversation. "Where's your mother?" I asked Mel. Katie had wandered off screen somewhere. "Oh, she is in the kitchen with Uncle Mick. Mom has a new friend. He went to the zoo with us today," Mel explained. My blood froze. Mick was not Pam's or my brother. I battled the sudden sinking sensation. I'd seen this too many times to feel relaxed. "How long has Uncle Mick been around?" I asked, as casually as I could. I take down individuals for a living. I am not a bloody actor. "Since right after Easter, Daddy, which was 2 months ago." Pam hadn't mentioned any new pals, which told me everything I needed to know. "Does Mom see much of Uncle Mick?" "How often is he present?" I asked. "Oh, he's available most days." I suddenly heard Kate whispering from off-screen. "Mel, you know, Mom does not want us to talk about Uncle Mick." Suspicion became a certainty. Rage began to gain control. I had a terrible time pushing back my wrath. "Kate, please come on screen," I barked. Kate appeared, visibly uneasy. "Kate, does Uncle Mick stay for sleepovers?" "Yes, Daddy." I struggled even more to control the savage hatred that threatened to consume my being. "So, do you like Uncle Mick?" I asked again. Both girls began chatting at once. It was impossible to listen to both simultaneously. I did catch the word slimy. "He smacked me and dislikes us. Right? Shush, gals. Now, Kate, you go first." "No, Daddy. We do not like him, and he does not like us. When Mom isn't present, he treats us badly. I believe he also hurts Mom. When he sleeps over in her room, I occasionally hear screaming. Damn, that hurt." The Army taught me how to strategize swiftly in a crisis. It was a skill I'd honed through many dangerous circumstances. Is that Mick's jacket hanging by the entrance door? I asked. Yes, Daddy. Please go fetch it, Kate, and check to see whether one of the pockets contains a wallet. She did. There was. Within 5 minutes, I knew Uncle Mick's full name, address, and license number. There was also a security card from his workplace. Kate assisted with that and then went into the garage to get his car. Details: make, model, and license plate number. Right, gals. I am going to make a phone call for a few minutes. Leave your screen turned on and check back when I return, okay? My call lasted almost 10 minutes. Thank goodness Simon's wife Julia was home and not in the hospital. I returned to my screen and called the gals on the radio. My lovely princesses. How about spending a few days at Auntie Julia's house? This was a consistently common question. Julia and Simon had 3 children of the same age as my pair and were close friends with them. Mel cried, "Daddy, we haven't seen them in ages." So Pam was hiding from our buddies. Was she? So go to your rooms and pack some clothes and toys. Enough for a few days, and Auntie Julia will pick you up soon. Now, Kate, please do something for me. Pick up and carry your laptop, screen first into the kitchen, then place it down with the screen facing you. Mum, please, I want to talk to her. Then go pack. Okay, Dad, Kate responded. I was given a tour of the house as the laptop was moved into the kitchen. As the kitchen door opened, I noticed Pam and a man sitting at the table, a bottle of wine between them. They didn't notice Kate as she placed the computer at the end of the table. In reality, they were in their own little universe until Kate remarked, "Mum, Dad wants to speak with you." They both spun around, as if they'd been hit, and looked at the television. Pam's expression was filled with horror, and the man appeared to want to slide beneath the table and out of sight. "Hello, Pam. How are you?" "This must be your pal, Mick," I questioned. Their lips moved, but no sounds emerged, so I proceeded. "Pam, you should have known you'd be caught one day. You must have prepared a short speech for me," I asked. It was clear she hadn't. She attempted a bluff without realizing she was the world's worst liar. I mean, it couldn't have been more clear if she had a flashing light on her head that went out whenever she attempted. He's only a friend, Davy. She rarely spoke. "Pam, that's nonsense. The females have already told me that Jerk here has been sleeping for the past few weeks." Pam finally decided to come honest. Her gallant lover attempted to get up and leave, but she grabbed his arm and drew him back to the table. I waited while several possible reactions passed over her face, as if I were watching a movie. "I'm sorry, Dave, but I became so lonely while you were away. I got to know Mick, and we fell in love." She went silent. I wanted to yell at them, but I recognized it would do nothing. I maintained a calm demeanor as I continued. "Pam, that's nonsense. This is the first time I've been absent for more than 2 weeks. We have been married for 9 years. Before we married, I warned you about what our life would be like. You accepted it." She didn't acknowledge that I had even spoken. So I proceeded. "For the record, sweetie, the proper procedure would have been to wait until I arrived home. Wait till I wasn't in a place where getting sidetracked can result in death in an instant. Then when I got home, tell me you wanted to separate and offer me the opportunity to alter your mind. After we parted ways, you could have moved in with Jerk here," Pam whispered as she looked at the table. "Sorry, Dave. It just happened." "So, Pam, what happens now? You're going to abandon me and sail off into the sunset with this jackass, aren't you?" I questioned. She didn't have the courage to glance up. She simply nodded. "And in your little fantasy world, you'd just take my children away from me, wouldn't you?" Something about my tone made her head jolt up. It was clear that she had never considered the idea of that not happening. "Listen, Pam, you know I'm interested in psychology. Can you recall all of our conversations about what influences children, nature or nurture? Heredity or environment? If you take the kids with you, They will inherit your cheating woman genes and grow up in a cheating woman atmosphere. Believe me, cheating woman, it won't happen. Pam reeled back in her chair as if slapped. She had just heard the first, second, and third abusive words I'd ever said, and they were all in one sentence. Finally, Jerk came to our defense. Now, wait a minute. Shut the hell up, I yelled. Another thing the Army teaches you is how to command the immediate obedience of those on the other side of a parade ground. Shut up! Pam announced that she was going to answer the door after there was a diversion off screen. I told her to wait. Julia will be arriving to take up the children. She'll take them to her apartment overnight and drop them off at school tomorrow. They should have packed some items already. Make sure they have everything they need, then return, so we may chat in peace. Pam got up, and Uncle Mike joined her. You sat down? I roared again, and he hurt his back before hurriedly sitting down. I simply stared at him for the 8 or so minutes it took Pam to return. The foolish guy even attempted to start a conversation about living in Iraq. One of the mess stewards came over to replace my drink. I asked him to make sure I had some privacy. I didn't want anyone to witness what happened next. Finally, Pam returned. She started speaking. Look, Dave, this is not how I intended it to go. I shut her down. I only have 2 questions for you, Mickey boy. The first is, were you aware she was married? I questioned. I apologize, man. I just fell for her. He began speaking, but I cut him off. I will take that as a yes. The second inquiry is, do you know what I do for a living? I questioned. Pam replies, you're in the Air Force in Iraq, and he responds. Pam interrupted. No, he is in the Army. I thought you mentioned he was in the air or something. He argued. I can see where the confusion is. I'm in the Army, but in a regiment called the Special Air Service. I could tell he wasn't getting it, so I kept going. You're undoubtedly familiar with us through an acronym. The SAS. The expression of dread on his face told me he had now understood. Hell, every man in the world knew about the SAS. Everyone knew they had written the book that all Special Forces units around the world learned from. Everyone understood that if you were brought down by the SAS, you wouldn't know until Lucifer showed you the evidence. Replay Jerk realized he was in serious trouble. The microphone detected no sound, yet his lips clearly formed the words, "Oh, hell!" So, Mr. Michael Brown from 12 Pender Court, Borderdale. The answer to the question of what I do for a living is that I kill people. I leaned in so my face filled the screen. His face was in a sad, pallid rictus. Such a jerk. For the offense of having an affair with my wife, for ruining my marriage, for jeopardizing my daughter's joyful future, I sentenced you to. I roared. What? He inquired, afraid. You have heard me. I'm going to ruin you. He simply sat there, his mouth expanding and shutting like a goldfish that had leaped out of the bowl. Pam cut in. Come now, Dave, cut the macho nonsense. I know you're in the Army, but how many people have you taken down? Her soft tone shocked me. I shifted my gaze away from Mick's image on the screen and toward her. I was also astonished by the slightly confrontational expression on her face. I realized she had no idea what I did with my days. Like most Special Forces troops, I had not promoted what I performed. No one outside of our close group of friends knew I was in the SAS. I didn't tell her what I did in Iraq, partly because I didn't want her to be concerned. I said, keeping my voice low, well, dear, I've been in the base for the past week, so I haven't taken anyone down. But the week before, I had taken down 10 or 12. It was a somewhat slow week. Sorry, I didn't actually count. It did not seem important at the moment. I shot the majority of them, but one jumped me while I was changing clips, and I stabbed him. I inserted my knife into his belly and angled up through his diaphragm until I reached his heart. Pam, surely your mother would have told you that the road to a man's heart is through his stomach, via the magic of Skype. We were staring intensely at one another from all around the world. What she saw was a stranger, who she knew was both dangerous and angry. What I observed was someone who had suddenly become quite terrified. What you should know, darling, is that I did not dislike any of those guys. They were simply doing their job. I felt nothing for the man I knifed, even as I watched his lights turn off. Now image what I would do to folks I despise. Mick made a gurgling noise, so I returned my attention to him. Are you still here? The further you get from my house, the longer you will live. My knife has made an appointment with your throat. That's a promise you can take to the bank. With an audible sigh, he jumped from his seat and off the screen. I heard the door slamming. She was now doing a goldfish impression. I let her collect her thoughts, which, judging by her facial expressions, were not pleasant. Finally, she murmured, "Are you going to destroy me too?" she asked. This brought me to a standstill. I had not decided on her sentencing. Pam, I apologize. I haven't decided yet. One thing is certain. After bringing a third person into my home and having an affair with him in front of the girls, you are not a suitable mother for my children. Oh, yes. Kate told me about how you scream when he is with you at night. She believes he is hurting you. I didn't believe Pam's expression could get any worse, but she shocked me. One thing is certain. My daughters will grow up knowing exactly what I think about cheaters. Another break allowed my ideas to shift from my emotional front brain to my rational core. They both agreed. You are aware that there is extensive data to demonstrate that having one parent die can be less harmful to children than a difficult divorce. Pam, unsurprisingly, did not respond to this. She was astute enough to recognize that the simple statement presented her with two possibilities, neither of which were favorable. No, Pam, I believe I would find it impossible to destroy you. I once loved you and continue to do so. I had no reason to believe you were not a decent mother. Before she became very thrilled about this, I continued. So, here's the deal, Pam. If I locate Mickey Boy and you're with him, I will annihilate you as well. If you contact the police, I will destroy you. If you do not have divorce papers ready for me to sign when I return home soon, I will destroy you. Do your homework, Pam. Look up. How many times have murderers been convicted when no bodies have been found? I assure you that yours will not be. I let it sink in. She appeared to be on the verge of losing consciousness. Will you really bring down Mick? She questioned Pam. This country has transformed me. I've lost so many friends and killed so many men that I only have a shred of humanity left. Taking down Mick will cause me no problems at all. Pam, if only you had done it the proper way, I'd have understood for the first time. Pam had tears in her eyes. I wanted to get this over with. Pam, you'd better write this down. The divorce settlement will grant me the house and full custody of the children. Your visitation will be entirely at my discretion, and it will be based on what I believe is best for the children. By the time I return, you should have arranged for a place to live. I will cover your living expenses for a reasonable period of time until you are able to support yourself. I'll send you the information for an army lawyer. The civilian judges appear to listen to them fairly well. When I return, I plan to work as an instructor at the base, allowing me to spend every night at home with the girls. We'll get along fine without you. One thing is certain. I'm not coming back here. Before I arrived, I was concerned that I wouldn't be able to handle being shot at. That was not a problem. What worries me is how much of my soul will be left. If I have to take down a lot more mothers, sons, it eats you. Good night, Pam. Don't bother mentioning any of this via email or phone until I respond. I won't be prepared to fall when I get home. Just do everything I've said, and you should live a long and happy life, not one that is even close to what could have been. But you made your decision. It's time to pay the piper. With that, I terminate the connection. I returned home 3 weeks later and had an emotional reunion with Kate and Mel. I tried to explain that their mother wouldn't be living with us anymore. They didn't understand, but Julia, Simon, and their children provided ample distraction. Every time they saw Simon, they questioned him why he walked. It was amusing how he told them different stories each time, more amazing than the last. When I stepped off the plane, I was met by police officers. Michael must have felt desperate. They admitted to speaking with my wife, who failed to confirm his story. I didn't use any creative, evasive methods, but I also didn't admit anything. They could do nothing but warn me that they would be watching while the divorce proceeded with only minor changes on my end. I decided to let my daughters determine how often they saw their mother. I was startled at how much blame their little brains placed on her for giving us so much misery. They almost never choose to see her. Of course, Julia's involvement was not revealed to me until much later. Julia was bringing them up from school every day, and they were having a great time reuniting with their old classmates. Julia and Simon's children left little time for a distraught, no-fun mom. Pam asked if there was any prospect of reconciliation. I simply allowed the ruthless demon that now resides within me to stare at her. It was not mentioned again. In fact, she made certain we were never alone after that. I obviously scared her. I did obtain the base instructor position and was home every night. The girls were given the best possible upbringing, yet divorcing parents has an emotional impact. Whatever you do. That is why psychologists advocate that parents stay together unless there is abuse. Yes, life is good. 4 years and 2 months later, Percy Newmont felt at ease. He was bow hunting with his mates out in the wilderness. After all this time, he would sometimes go for hours without thinking about his previous problems. He turned back to face his friend Peter. He, along with the other two, worked for Percy and spent a lot of time together. Peter met his gaze and smiled. Yes. Percy reflected on this. Life was good. He missed only one activity with them, Wednesday night poker. That's when Percy began an affair with Peter's wife. Moving to different locations and establishing a new identity had been difficult and had cost Percy financially, but it worked. He was aware that returning to Border Day last month for his mother's burial was perilous. He felt ridiculous in disguise at the rear of the church, avoiding touch with his relatives. But she was his mother. For heaven's sake, there was a sense of frontal impact. Then Percy was on his back. He gazed down at the arrow protruding from his chest, just below his heart. He was temporarily perplexed. His 3 companions stood behind him. How come? He'd been struck from the front? He passed out, but awoke some hours later. He was alone with Peter. The others had gone to get help. Suddenly, the ache that had brought him around in the first place returned. What the hell was Peter doing? Grabbing the arrow feathers and tugging them sideways? Why the hell was he smiling? Mick passed out again when the anguish became too severe. He drowned in his own blood. 10 minutes later, without regaining consciousness, the coroner's officer gazed down at the body. Every year, I get my back pulled out here when some ignorant person accidentally shoots one of their pals. Pam sat in her 12th floor apartment crying. 2 weeks later. She'd been at it for the past 3 hours, ever after John, her most recent boyfriend, had gone. What exactly is wrong with me? She had a thought. She examined her life during the previous 4 years. She had truly believed that Michael was the one. She married Dave because she realized her biological clock was ticking, and it was a means of obtaining the children she truly desired. So when Michael came along and she recognized the potential to have both her children and a soulmate, she didn't hesitate. It took a month after Michael's disappearance for her to realize that her feelings for him were not mutual, without glancing at her. He had gone on indefinitely, leaving his overcoat and money behind in search of closure. She'd visited his apartment and employment 2 days after he went. But he was gone. What upset her the most was that he clearly didn't care how she had fared after he went. Her children were a major source of her depression throughout the first year or so. She has just begun the legal procedure of forcing Julia to return, Kate and Melanie, when David returned from Iraq and quashed it. After that, whenever she called the girls, the conversation was awkward, as if they were blaming her for something. She saw them around once a week until the woman moved in with Dave, 9 months after Pam had gone out. Apparently, she was the journalist that covered the tale of David and his teammates receiving medals. After that, the girls didn't appear interested in conversing with her on the phone. She had begun parking outside the school at the end of the day. Even that came to an end when she noticed both daughters coming up to the woman and hugging her as if she were their mother. That year, they didn't even ring on her birthday. When she met Pat, the anguish eased slightly. He was a few years older than her, but shared her desire to have a family. 8 months later, she moved in with him, and they discussed marriage and children. 2 weeks later, he saddened her by informing her that he had found someone else and requested her to leave. The following year, Randy experienced a similar situation. They hit it off right away and were inseparable after 2 weeks. 4 months later, they moved in together. 3 weeks later, he dumped her, claiming he was getting back together with his ex-wife. Pam then embarked on a series of one-night affairs, hoping to increase her confidence. It had the opposite effect. She was convinced that John was the one, despite knowing that if she didn't have children soon, it would be too late. She forced herself to move slowly alongside him. It took more than a year for her to give in to his mild pressure and let him move into her flat, albeit she did so with some sorrow. She realized it was the best love she'd experienced since Dave. John met her at the door of her apartment 3 hours earlier when she returned home from work. She noticed his packed bags at the door. He made no excuse. He just said he was leaving. He didn't make eye contact as he gathered up his things and went. Why had he said cheating woman as he took his final bag out the door? She had not looked at another man since she met him. Pam wiped her tears and looked at the mail, which was still unread on the coffee table. There was a blank envelope and 2 bills. In her haste to get home to John, she had resisted the impulse to open the mysterious blank envelope. She grabbed it up now. It included a newspaper clipping. She was perplexed. Why would someone hand-deliver a narrative about a dumb hunter who died tragically after being accidentally shot with an arrow? Her face plummeted as she reached the bottom of the piece, which stated that the victim was previously known as Michael Brown and had resided in Border Dale. The paper dropped from her numb fingertips. She was thinking about Michael. She thought of Pat and Randy. Finally, she thought of Dave. Certainly not. She had a thought. Surely. Yes. She knew. 4 years ago, she had nearly everything in her quest for the final missing piece. She had ended up with nothing. In a stupor, she opened the balcony sliding door and gazed at the long yet alluring drop down to the parking lot 12 floors below. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.